recruited to my beloved lecturer, which is Miss Nur Suzilana binti Idris, and also my supervisor of this research, which is Madam Mumtaza binti Narawi. So my name is Calvin Chan Chun, and today I want to present about the legal research presentation, and my research topic is about morality and effectiveness of death penalty in Malaysia. Okay, so first and foremost, we look about the abstract of this research. So actually, this research will more focus in the death penalty in Malaysia, which is about the morality and also effectiveness on how ethical consideration and practical outcome shape its application. So for example, with the recent abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2023, actually this act allowed greater judicial discretion in sentencing, and also the public prosecutor in capital punishment case gains critical importance in the ongoing debate over its place in the justice system. So for example, the death penalty is a state-sanctioned execution used for various crimes and remains a polarizing global issue. So in our country, it is deeply embedded in the legal system and applied to offences such as drug trafficking and also murder. So to sum it all, actually morality and effectiveness of death penalty in Malaysia is a contentious subject with argument divides between its role and maintaining social order and implication for human rights and justice. All right, so let's look about the introduction of this research. So actually, Malaysia abolishment of the mandatory death penalty 2023 is a significant step toward lining up with worldwide common freedom standard and also developing worldwide resistance to death penalty. So YB Noor Azalina Oman actually she had introduced this act on the April 11, 2003, and also in the Dewan Negara, the upper place of parliament had passed 2 bills improving capital punishment condemning following their section by the Dewan Rakyat or lower house on April 3. So next, Malaysia as of late held capital punishment for 33 offences. So for example, the abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2023 846 actually eliminate all the compulsory capital punishment for the 12 offences that commit it. It includes drug trafficking, murder, treason, and terrorism. So in fact, actually this bill is disposed of the death penalty, and it is an opportunity for 7 offences, including attempted murder and also kidnapping. So actually, natural life imprisonment, which encourage prisoner until death, will be suspended or replaced by at least 30 years, however not exceeding 40 years. So actually, if you look back to the history of Malaysia, for the decade, Malaysia, like many countries worldwide, grappled with the contentious issue of the death penalty, particularly its mandatory imposition of certain offences. So for example, against a backdrop of involving societal value, international human rights standard actually growing call for reform, and also the passing of this bill represent a significant movement for the Malaysia quest for justice, fairness, and human rights protection. So actually, this landmark legislation sought to repeal mandatory death sentence, granting judge the discretion to impose alternative punishment based on the merit for individual cases. So next we'll look about the problem statement of this research. So I will divide into 3 parts. The first part is judicial discretion and sentencing fairness. So for example, the abolishment of the mandatory death penalty in Malaysia is aimed to reduce the crime rate and also to promote justice by granting judge more discretion in sentencing. Secondly, actually, the next problem statement is moral and ethical dimension. For example, the use of death penalty in Malaysia necessitates a critical examination on its moral implication. To quote an example, actually, this diverse religious and cultural perspective within the country, and actually issues such as the sensitivity of the human life and also the possibility of the wrongful commission, ethical role of the state in implementing capital punishment is the one of the common issue of this moral and ethical dimension. So the next part is public opinion and deterrence. So for example, despite criticism and calls for the abolishment of the death penalty, proponents also argue that the societal red lines and public opinion favor its retention. All right, so I have found 3 research objectives in this research. So first and foremost, the first research objective that I found in this research is to study the legal framework and abolishment of death penalty in Malaysia. Secondly, to analyze the legal framework governing the use of death penalty in Malaysia and its adherence to international human rights standards. Thirdly, to explore alternative punishment and their effectiveness compared to the death penalty. All right, so I also found 3 research questions in this research paper. So the first research question is, what is the legal and political factors have influenced the evolution of Malaysia death penalty law, and what are the prospects and challenges for this abolishment of death penalty? Secondly, how does Malaysia legal framework for the death penalty compare to the international human rights standard, particularly regarding due process, fair trial rights, and also prohibition of the arbitrary and discriminatory execution? So lastly, are there any alternative form of punishment that are more human and equally effective as the death penalty? So subsequently, the scope of this research I have divided into three main parts. So the first part is comprehensive relation. For example, in this research, actually, I'm more focused in critically assess the morality and effectiveness of the death penalty in Malaysia. So I am using the multidisciplinary approach that integrate perspective from law, ethics, sociology, criminology, and psychology. So furthermore, actually the next scope of research is ethical and deterrence analysis. So in this research, I'm more focused into the moral and ethical justification for capital punishment and considering the diverse cultural viewpoints and scrutinizing its role as a deterrent to crime. Thirdly, it more focus on social, economic, and legal justice. For example, I will examine the social, economic, and legal aspect of the death penalty, and we are more focusing on the procedure such as fairness, bias, disparity, and also proposing policy reform to enhance the justice in Malaysia. And in the same time, I hope that this can protect the human right in Malaysia criminal justice system. All right, so the next part I will present about the significance of this research. So I have divided into three significance of this research. So the first one is to advance human rights and also social justice. So for example, it can be proved that actually this research is mainly to aim to empower individual and community in Malaysia by raising the awareness and fostering dialogue on the death penalty and also morality and effectiveness. For example, this advocating for reforms that uphold dignity, fairness, and human rights. Secondly, actually, I also hope that this research can more focus to support global abolition efforts. For example, this study contributes to international movement advocating for the abolishment of the death penalty and to explore the alternative justice approach. So the next one is to address systematic injustice. For example, by examining the wrongful conviction and also the social and economic disparity and also the racial bias in the application of the death penalty in Malaysia. So the next one is research methodology. So in this research, I'm using qualitative method for this research. So I have interviewed 3 professional criminal lawyer and also criminal lecturer from the criminal background. So actually the method I'm using is a semi-structured interview during the interview season. So because of that, in order for me to get more information, I have using the doctrinal legal research such as I had searched the information and then the evidence of some cases from the books, articles, statutes, and also case study. So the 3 professional criminal lawyers and lecturers that I interviewed is Mr. Darwin Lim Chun. So he's the criminal lawyer and he's also one of the member of Lead Law Office Advocates and Solicitors, and also he was also the chairman of Penang Legal and Public Complaint Bureau Keadilan Pulau Pinang. So the second person that I interviewed is Ms. Noor Azani. So she was a criminal lecturer of School of Investigation and Enforcement from College Unicorn. Thirdly, the next interview that I interviewed is Mr. Arawin Rush Analaki T. Paramisawan, and he was a criminal lawyer of Arawin Association Crank. All right, so next I will present about the literature review. So I have listed out 3 essential or important literature review that I had used in this research. So the research paper that I found is by Donovan Chong and Jie that were written in 2022, and the title is The Ethics and Morality of the Death Penalty. So for example, this article, I found that it more focused on the moral and legal personality of the death penalty through 4 jurisprudential perspectives, which are naturalism, secondly is positivism, retributism, and also lastly, authoritarianism. So the next article that I used in this research is challenges to the constitutionality of the mandatory death penalty in Malaysia that was written by Joshua Wu Kai Ming in year 2021. So for instance, actually this article is discussed more about the historical and also the legal argument about the mandatory death penalty in Malaysia. So thirdly, the third article that I found in this research paper is Reform of Mandatory Death Penalty in Malaysia, What Do the Bill Say? By Amnesty International. So as we all know, Amnesty International was the very famous NGO in the world. And also actually this research, they are more focused in legislative effort to abolish the mandatory death penalty in Malaysia. It critiques the arbitrary nature of mandatory death sentence and also argue about the greater human right protection, and they are more concerned about the fair trial guarantee during the sentence process. So in this research, I have found many limitations in this research. So I have divided into 3 limitations. So the first limitation is I have found that difficulty in recruiting participants, especially individuals that impacted by the death penalty, such as victim family, defendant, and legal profession. So for example, I found some difficulty when I want to interview the police officer and also some victim family because it requires some time and also need to get the approval letter from the faculty. So the next limitation that I found in this research is a difficulty to deal with my time, especially to reading up for mid-semester test and also investing the effort to compose for my proposition. So actually in this semester, I have many final project and also mid-semester exam. So actually this is quite hard for me to deal with the time management. So the next limitation that I found in this research is factors such as a legal framework, cultural attitude, and also socio-economic condition vary across different countries and jurisdiction. So for example, I have found that it's difficult to explore the finding to other contexts and also actually we should use the article very mindfully before we use the point for this research. All right, so next we will move focus for the chapter 2. So actually my first research objective is to study the legal framework and abolishment of death penalty in Malaysia. Hence, this chapter 2 will more discuss about the government implementation and also the legal framework of the government of Malaysia about the abolishment of death penalty in Malaysia. So first I will present about the introduction. So we can look at the first part, which is Dato Sri Dr. Wan Azizawan Ismail. She had mentioned that the penal code and other statutes have long prescribed capital punishment for a variety of serious offences such as murder and also drug trafficking. Actually, she also highlighted that these various offences, right, reflecting a legal tradition that has emphasized the deterrence and retribution. So what is the definition of death penalty? So actually the death penalty is a legal process whereby a state or government or the authority can sanction the execution of a person as a penalty for perpetrating a crime deemed serious enough to warrant such an extreme form of punishment. So next I also will more look about the program of death penalty in Malaysia. For example, the death penalty in Malaysia has its origin in British colonial rule and was retained post-independence. For example, actually, this is influenced by social and also cultural views on justice and the need of deterrence against various types of crimes in Malaysia. All right, so the next one is I also have do the research about the evolution of death penalty. For instance, I will strongly see eyes to eyes that the abolishment of mandatory death penalty Act 2023 actually played a significant shift in Malaysia's criminal justice system by introducing discretionary sentence for capital offences. And actually, this act can allow judges to consider individual circumstances and mitigating factor, and also it can promote more nuanced and fair outcomes. So the next part is I'm more focused in legal framework regarding the application of death penalty in Malaysia. For example, I have found that actually Section 227 of the Criminal Procedure Code actually highlight the hanging as the method of execution of death sentence in Malaysia. For example, I also found that the Article 5 of the Federal Constitution highlight that the Federal Constitution stated that we should guarantee the right to life, but allow of the death penalty under law, integrating procedural safeguard to ensure trial adhere to the principle justice and due process. So the next that I found the relevant section is Article 846. For example, the abolishment of mandatory death penalty Act 2023 Act 846 remove the mandatory death penalty for certain offences, and it allows judges to have imposed alternative punishment while considering mitigating factor and providing appeal for the offences. All right, so we can see that actually in Malaysia, we does have a death penalty for serious offences such as a murder and also drug trafficking and also firearm. But also, we're also giving some exemption for 3 categories of death penalty in Malaysia. So the first exemption is to the pregnant woman. Secondly is to the juvenile offender that age is under 18. And so lastly is to exemption for individuals who are of unsound mind. So you can see the right-hand side, which is the picture. Actually, this is a table that shows the offences punishment by mandatory death sentence. So actually, we can see that still got many offences or death sentence that implement in Malaysia, such as murder and also drug trafficking and also firearm. All right, so next I will proceed to chapter 3, which is chapter 3 is more focused into analyze the legal framework governing the use of death penalty in Malaysia and its adherence to the international human rights standard. For example, actually the passage of the abolition of mandatory death penalty 2023 signified a major reform in Malaysia capital punishment. And actually this is a very significant step for our country to more closely with global human rights standard and recognize the need of for human and individual justice. For example, by compliance with this international human rights standard, right, actually it can bring Malaysia legal system into better compliance with international human rights and also for protection of life and fair trial principle under the ICCPR. All right, so we can see that this is the statistic that provided by the Amnesty International. Actually, we can see that actually the total number of global death sentences from 2014 to 2023 is still high, which is 2023 is record 2,500 of recorded global death sentence in that year. So we can see that actually the total of death sentence is still increased in the past few years. So, all right, so next we'll look about the morality of the death penalty. In fact, I'm strongly agree that actually the abolishment of mandatory death penalty Act 2023 marks a pivotal shift in Malaysia's criminal justice system to a more human and just approach, reflecting a global trend of moving away from capital punishment. And actually, we look about the effectiveness of death penalty. Actually, this highlights a move toward a more effective and equitable justice system, questioning the death penalty, deterrence efficiency, and also embracing a focus on rehabilitation and fair sentence. Next, if you look to the incapacitation theory, actually Malaysia moved away from mandatory death penalty toward life imprisonment under this act. And actually, this act actually is very important because it can balance the crime prevention with upholding the human right in the same time, and also it can align and also follow the rules of the global lift to more human and rehabilitative justice system. So next, I also look about the review of the execution method according to international human rights. So for example, actually we can see that in considering this method, actually Malaysia is aligned with the international human rights standard by potentially moving away from hanging toward more human alternative like lethal injunction. So actually, what is lethal injection? So actually, lethal injection is one of the punishment method that are implemented by other foreign country. And actually, Malaysia can consider this lethal injunction compared to hanging because we believe that actually hanging is one of the punishment that was violate the international human rights standard. All right, so next we will look about the number of death sentences in Malaysia that are provided by the start in year 2021. So we can see that from year 2018 to year 2021, actually the number of death penalty actually is decrease, but actually Malaysia still implement the death sentence in Malaysia. And we can see that in year 2018, actually we have 126 Malaysian that was punished by death penalty, while in 2021, there are 57 of Malaysian was punished by death penalty in Malaysia. All right, so the next graph is about the number of reported death sentence and execution from year 2007 to year 2017. So actually, this is a comparison with foreign country, which is Taiwan, Singapore, Bangladesh. So we can see that Bangladesh is recorded a higher number of reported death sentence in the past 10 years, which is they have 1,545 death sentence, while Malaysia is secondly higher in this reported death sentence, which is we have 611 of death sentence from 2007 to 2017. All right, so the next chapter that have more focus is chapter 4. Actually, chapter 4 is to explore alternative method for punishment and their effectiveness compared to the death penalty. So actually, the evolution of imprisonment from a historical alternative is to a capital punishment to primarily punitive measure in modern legal system. Actually, it reflects a global shift toward more human and rehabilitative approach in criminal justice. So the next one is alternative method of punishment compared to death penalty. For example, in Malaysia, we can use life imprisonment, probation, community service, and restorative justice system to emphasize the rehabilitation, accountability, and also the punishment for the death sentence in Malaysia. All right, so actually there are many benefits of life imprisonment compared to death penalty. For example, life imprisonment offers a significant advantage over the death penalty by providing the opportunity for offender of the rehabilitation, and also actually life imprisonment is a social commitment to human rights and also sensitivity of the life. So the next one is retribution and deterrence. So actually life imprisonment serves as a severe and permanent form of retributive justice and also potentially more effective compared to the death penalty. So this was the finding analysis. So I had prepared 15 questions for the three interviewees that interview for the season. So we can have a look of this question. So first and foremost, I will conclude about the first interviewee that I interviewed of this research, which is by Mr. Darwin Lim Chu Sin. So actually, he was a criminal lawyer of Pulau Pinang, and also he's one of the member of the legal office advocate and solicitor, and also he was also how many positions such as he was the council member of Seberang Perai City Council, chairman of Penang Legal and Public Complaint Bureau Keadilan Pulau Pinang, and also head of Batu Branch Taiwan Strategy Director and MK Pinang. So actually, Mr. Darwin he support the abolishment of mandatory death penalty Bill 2023 because he agreed that actually this mandatory death penalty right actually is a emphasize the potential to give just a more flexibility of sentence and offering new ground for appeal for those currently on death row. So actually, in this interviewing session, right, he also cited a cases which is Sharil Jafar. Okay, this cases that just was being heard in the court in the May 2024. Actually, this is where this bill could impact future sentence. So actually, in this Jafar, right, actually the federal court actually had maintained the judgment from the Court of Appeal, which is the plaintiff should maintain the death penalty. So actually, his appeal was unsuccessful, even the abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2023 had been implemented in Malaysia. So actually, we can see that actually the judge still have the power to determine, okay, the prisoner whether they will be punished by the death penalty or life imprisonment. So in this interviewing session, right, actually he also acknowledged to remove the death penalty, such as we can use alternative methods such as education and vocational training for prisoners to reduce recidivism. So Mr. Darwin also highlight the ethical and complexity of choosing between life imprisonment and also death penalty. So actually, he also stated that both options are very significant. It will cause the psychological burden to the victim. And also, he also stressed the need of government awareness campaigns to clarify the implication of the bill to the public, because he stated that many Malaysians still do not know the implementation of this abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2023. All right, so the next person that I interviewed is Ms. Noor Azani. She is the criminal law lecturer from UNICORP. So actually, Ms. Noor Azani, she support the abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2023. For example, she was agreed that actually this abolishment of mandatory death penalty can align with the international human rights standard. It can foster a more human approach to a criminal justice through rehabilitation and also alternatives such as life imprisonment with parole. So actually, she emphasized that the psychological impact for both life imprisonment inmates and those on death row actually is to promote reconciliation and healing. So actually, she also suggests that Malaysian government should enhance the rehabilitation program in Malaysia. Like we can refer to the countries such as New Zealand and Thailand, they are more facilitate offender rehabilitation and reduce crime rate. So actually, she also highlight the Malaysian government should more focus for the better victim support and to the victim families. So the last interview that I interviewed is Mr. Arvind Raj Lalaki T. Paramasivam, and actually he was the criminal lawyer from Arvind and Association Crown. But for this interviewing session, right, actually Mr. Arawin opposed or declined the abolishment of mandatory death penalty bill 2033 because he stated that actually this will cause the financial burden of maintaining life imprisonment, and he believed that outweigh the cost of execution death penalty sentence in our country, because he stated that actually this removal of mandatory death penalty by replacing it with life imprisonment, it will cause the financial burden to our government. So he suggests that we should implement our work programs for prisoners to instill responsibility and contribution to societal needs. And he also highlighted the potential for active inmate rehabilitation and societal benefit. For instance, actually, he also suggests that the government should have the educational initiative to enhance the cognitive and emotional skill to prevent recidivism. So he also suggests that ethnic punishment should focus on rehabilitation, but notes their limitation for repeat offenders. So it means that Mr. Arawin was disagree to implement out the life imprisonment to the repeat offenders. So lastly, he also concluded that actually the improved judicial training and resources to ensure the fair sentencing practice and consistency in the judicial decision. All right, so the conclusion that I can make in this research is actually we can see the Malaysia approach to the death penalty highlight the legal framework, ethical consideration, and effectiveness compared to the alternative punishment. So actually, it actually can begin by the tracing Malaysia's strict law on the capital punishment of offences such as drug trafficking and also murder. So actually, this analysis can more concern in fairness and the risk of irreversible miscarriage of justice under current practice. So for example, alternative punishment such as life imprisonment, rehabilitation program can be found is more moderate compared to superior punishment such as death penalty. So actually, the enactment of abolishment of death penalty in 2023 marks a significant shift toward a more human and equitable criminal justice system in Malaysia, because nowadays the judge have the power to consider the individual circumstances and promoting the rehabilitation over retribution. So I had given out 3 recommendations for this research. So the first recommendation is I hope that the government can enhance public awareness and engagement. For example, the Malaysian authorities should prioritize public awareness campaign such as educational initiative, and secondly is community forum to facilitate to inform discussion about the minority efficiency and also the implementation of this act. Because many Malaysian citizens still do not aware of this implementation of this act. They are more confused with the mandatory death penalty in Malaysia. So actually, mostly Malaysians still think that actually Malaysia was totally abolishment of all the death penalty in Malaysia. So the second recommendation that I can give in this research is I suggest that actually Malaysia government should active participation in international forum on human rights. For example, the Malaysian minister and also the relevant NGO should actively engage in the program that organized by the other country. For example, they should more focus on the human right, criminal justice, and also abolitionist of punishment. So by participating in these global dialogues, I believe that Malaysia can contribute to effort and reducing and ultimately abolishment the death penalty worldwide. Well, follow the practice that align with the international human rights standard. So I also giving out an extra recommendation, which is a third recommendation, which is I hope that the government should implement out the rehabilitation program in Malaysia, and also the government should think about the offender age, race, and also their background before punish the death penalty or life imprisonment to the prisoner. It was essential because for some prisoner, they have a very low educational background, and actually they don't have the financial support. So actually the government should or the judge should consider this factor before punishment the death sentence of the life imprisonment to the prisoner. So that's all from my presentation today, and thank you for letting me your guest. So have a nice day. Bye bye.